Hey guys, welcome back to the Big Red Express. I got the pleasure to speak with the third fittest man on earth, Patrick Vellner. Patrick, first off, thanks for taking some time and chatting with us.
It's my pleasure.
So, Patrick, as a rookie going into the CrossFit Games, first off, we got to talk about the big story around regional. You reportedly had a torn bicep in the middle of regionals. I think it was right at the beginning of the East Regional competition. Talk us through what happened there and then how you kind of, progressed through regionals and then making it to the games.
Yeah, never get tired of talking about that one. It was a pretty obviously not an ideal situation at regionals. I don't know I don't know what happened, but sometimes things just shit happens, and it was at the start in the snatch ladder. I just blew my arm up in one of the lifts, and I couldn't get any stabilization going under it. So after that event, they assessed it, and they said it was more than likely a tear of my long head of my bicep, like if not full, then pretty close to. So there hasn't been like since then. I haven't actually had anything done with it. I have
Right,
an MRI in like 2 days to get it finally looked at and see what the whole story is.
right,
So up until like beyond that initial assessment, I've had it assessed a couple times, but only a physical assessment. So we're just are operating on the initial diagnosis that we were given, kind of. So I kind of they pulled me aside and I got the withdrawal sheets waved around, and I was like, well, I'm not going to withdraw until I'm sure that I can't compete. So
right,
I went and still warmed up, and as long as I was able to warm up and do the movements of the next workout, I would do the next workout. And particularly on that first day, I have a gymnastics background. I knew that strict muscle up workout would probably one that I could do some damage in. So I wanted to try and do that. Even if I wasn't going to be able to compete the rest of the weekend, I could at least go out on a better note than hurting my arm in
right.
5 minutes into the weekend. So I went and did that one, and it went well. And then sort of beyond that, they gave me the next day the whole spiel, and I needed to be cleared every event to compete. The head judges and the medical staff would watch me warm up and do all the movements that were required in the events. And so as long as I wasn't overtly compensating a ton or moving like crap, I was able to. They would let me take the floor, and with still the asterisk saying like, if things break down during the event, we're going to pull you out.
Right.
So I kind of just had to take it one event by one event, which you sort of should anyways. But it really forced me to kind of take a step back and really, I couldn't take the competition for granted anymore. It was kind of like every time I took the floor, it might be the last time that weekend. So
Right.
I wasn't warming up. Everybody kept asking about the rope climbs or the overhead squat on like day one, and I couldn't think about them until the last day. It
Right.
was just had to do one thing at a time, and it ended up going well enough. So it was nice to succeed after that for sure. It was a major setback. I was
Right.
not too super stoked about that after event one. I was after having a good open, and I had some high expectations going into the event, and it was a really like things came crashing down real fast, and like Dave was saying there at the award ceremony, like he came in and was like, "We'll see you next year,"
Right.
and that kind of just that eats at you a little bit. So you kind of have something to prove a little bit going in, and I was able to do it, which was nice.
Long story short, you made it to the games. You competed very well at the games. Let's talk about your first trip ever to the CrossFit Games. You get there, the atmosphere. You get all your free swag, all that stuff. I'm sure you're kind of overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that you were given right when you first got there. Let's talk about that first day. Tuesday night, you guys are given a list and saying, "Hey, you guys have to be down at the lobby at 3:30 to meet with your judge. You don't know what's going on. You don't know where you're going or what is in store for you." Talk us through from the beginning of that day to the end of that day. Kind of give us that story of when you first woke up. It's your first CrossFit Games, and you're like, "Oh man, they're making us wake up at 3:30. We're not sure where we're going."
That was fun. It was actually I was really looking forward to it. it's sort of, I think people were a little irked about not getting to sleep.
Right.
And I mean, I had just traveled kind of the day before, so I was still on Eastern time. So it wasn't so bad for me to try to go to bed at like 8 or 9. Like that's effectively midnight for me at that point.
Right.
So I was like, all right, no problem. I'll sleep, no problem. And to get up we were up at 3 to be in the lobby by 3:30. Like that's still, it's early, but it didn't feel that bad. I think it was more because they didn't tell us anything. It was almost like everybody's asking us what we're doing, what we're doing. People want to watch, right? And my family's asking about it, and we're like,
Right.
wow, we've been told literally nothing. Like we don't know when we start, we don't know where we start, we don't know what we're doing.
Right.
Like so, it was cool. Like the air of mystery around it was really interesting. And I mean, it was with the list that we got. I think initially a lot of people expected we were going to go do something like what the Pendleton thing was a few years ago, and go do some Navy SEAL shit and like go do that.
Right.
So I was excited about that. I think it's fun. That sort of grunt work is pretty fun, and I'm reasonably good in new elements. Like when there's that new mysterious element, like with the snail or things like that. Like I generally have pretty good success, and I learn pretty quickly. So coming into the competition, in my mind, the less CrossFit we were doing and the more like random stuff, I'd probably have more success.
Right.
Because some of these guys are amazing CrossFitters. Like you put a barbell in their hands or you put them on like a rig and they'll blow you up. Like so, I thought it was going to be a cool way to start it, but it ended up being a very long day. Like
Yeah.
we were whatever. But when they initially told us we were going to the airport, everybody kind of realized we were going to go to Aromas pretty quick. So we got there and they had the big unveiling of all the deadlift bars. And when we first got there, I think we were up about 3, leaving the hotel maybe by 3:45. And then we had like trying to herd that whole crew through the airport early in the morning was the zoo.
Yeah, watching that live feed it seemed like it was just so much because all you saw was you guys getting in line for security, and we were just like, how in the world are they going to get that many athletes on a plane in the amount of time they need to with all the stuff that I'm sure you guys had to bring?
Yeah, well, they made us you were only allowed to bring one bag, so
Right.
it wasn't so bad. Everybody had one carry-on bag. That's all you had. So they provided anything you would need at the ranch. Like you didn't have to bring food or anything for the day. Like they took care of everybody pretty well. But it was just, you know how airport travel is at the best of times, and it was just like now you had 180 people between like all of our athletes and staff and everybody, and we're like we filled the whole plane just for us I think on the way, and then we were delayed on the way back, so it just the whole day made for like a 3:30 wake up, and we didn't get back to the hotel till about midnight I think. So that was and then had to wake up to swim the next morning. So it was that was a long one, but the ranch was super fun. We had about 30 minutes from the time we got there to the time we started running. So you kind of was like, hey, wow, fun, surprise. Okay, now go. Like we didn't have a whole lot of time. It was like start warming up if you feel like do whatever you got to do because we're going.
How is that atmosphere? Just going into the ranch and being like, this is where the first couple CrossFit Games were. You were obviously kind of knew you were going to be doing some of the events from 2009 back in those. How was that atmosphere as a rookie coming in the 10th anniversary of CrossFit? Getting to be back where it all originated.
I thought it was a good thing for the rookies. It was beneficial, in my opinion. I said something about it on the cool down show, and because I think Rory was asking, like you said something about how they thought it would be a great year to be a veteran with a lot of the surprise elements that came out. But I think the opposite is true in that Aromas ranch. I don't think you benefit at all from being a rookie unless you're Spencer Hendel or Ben Smith, who were there and competed in 2009. And you did the trail run, that now you might have a little bit of an advantage. But beyond knowing the trail run course, I think there was no advantage to be gained. It was actually nice as a rookie because you didn't have the sort of like the flash of the games was taken away a little bit. There was no fans, there was no spectacle, there was no anything. It was just a bunch of athletes, a handful of media, and some staff, and it it felt like a local competition, like a small local throwdown, except it was all the games athletes there, and it was really fun. And you did back to back. The run and the deadlift happened pretty quick, but then we broke for lunch, and we had a couple hours before we did that third event, and so everyone was just hanging out in the garage. You'd be like stretching a little bit and just chatting, and you sort of got to break the ice of the competition a little bit more throughout the travel. And when you first get there, some people know each other already. A lot of the guys who are in the same region are just hanging out, but it gave a little bit of an opportunity for everyone to just sort of relax and hang out for the afternoon. So it was cool. It was actually, I thought it made it easier for the rookies because it was a gentler like beginning to the games rather than being just an aggressive start with a huge bang.
Now, one of the things that I think a lot of people are wondering is was there any place at the ranch for you guys to shower or kind of clean up before you came home? Because I can't imagine if you guys just got done doing 3 workouts, how stinky and how disgusting smelling that plane would be on the ride home.
Yeah, they did actually. They had some trailer shower facilities that they towed in, so it was good. No, I didn't think they want. On the way back too, we didn't have a whole plane to ourselves.
Right.
So I think that wouldn't have been very nice for all the other people on the plane, but especially where we were in the ranch, it's dry and dusty. Like in that run and everything like that, you're running through a cloud of dust the whole time, and just with the sweat on you, and then you run through that wall of dust. Everyone just had a film of gunk on them by the time they finished. So yeah, no, we were good. We were pretty well taken care of. We had everything we needed, I think.
When you guys get back, and you said it was a long day, you only had one event, the ocean swim. You being from the East Coast, I mean, I don't know how often you are, familiar with swimming in the ocean, but let's just talk about that event. I think it was event number 4, the only event that you guys had on Thursday. How was that? Was it your first time in the ocean? Did you have some practice before with an open water swim?
I'd done some open water. I was training a bit in Boston a while back, and I did a little bit in the ocean as well, but I haven't done much ocean. It's particularly with surf like that. So, and I'm also not the strongest swimmer to begin with. I'm fine. I'm getting there. But I just need. I think the mass start kind of throw people for a loop.
Right.
Having that many bodies running in and not a lot of space in only a 500-meter course, it meant a lot of people scraping all the time. And I figured that was going to mess with me a lot. If I was able to just swim my own race, I'd be fine.
Right.
So I kind of tried to stay away from people a little bit more, and I didn't attack that event at all. I treated it as it was an active recovery swim.
Right.
I was swimming 500 meters. It was a lot of impact the day before with the hills and stuff, and I wasn't going to make up points in the swim. I was hoping to finish maybe like 25-ish, and it went worse than that, but. I wasn't expecting to crush a swim event. So it was harder than I expected, I think, with the surf and stuff. And I didn't swim a great race either, but it wasn't my forte. And it's something I definitely need to address in the next year. But
when you look at the games, and I know a lot of the guys that you saw on the top of the leaderboard were veterans. You had the Panchik and Ben Smith and Matt Fraser and those guys. But you also had a couple rookies that were up there in the top 5 all weekend long. Yourself and Fikowski, 2 Canadians. When you guys are neck and neck, when you guys are in the same heat pretty much all weekend long, how much do you guys communicate or just kind of shoot the breeze in between events, getting ready for events? How well do you get to know your fellow competitors, especially in that top tier of athletes?
Pretty well. Most people aren't going too crazy in the back. If you're keeping your stress levels cranked to 10 between events for 5 days, like you're going to lose your mind. Everyone's trying their best to relax when you're in the back, and for the most part, Brent and I have pretty open dialogue, and we share a lot throughout the weekend, and a few of the other guys too. Like I was speaking with Alex Anderson a lot through the weekend, and like Ben and guys like that. You just whatever. Like everyone's got different strengths and different backgrounds, and there's some events where like I would give people a tip on how to do something a little bit better, like that ring handstand push-up one. Again, I have a gymnastics background,
right? So
there were some things I was like, okay, well, if I were you guys, I would probably try to approach it like this, because otherwise things are going to get real hard real fast. And I don't mind sharing that a little bit if I share a tip with you and you beat me, it's because you're fitter than me. So like,
Right.
I don't want to. You're not gonna win it on tricks and gimmicks. Like you want to win because you deserve to win. So most of the time, yeah, a lot of the time, people are able to share a lot, and even if it's not really a competition, people just chat and yeah, shoot the breeze in the back. Like you got nothing else to do. You're there all day, and you're with these people for 5 days, and they're all great guys. So it's really fun, actually.
I'm sure that you have followed CrossFit over the last years. How was it competing side by side with a Matt Fraser, with a Ben Smith, who in his 8th year competing at the games, you're right up there, right next to him on the competition floor. Guys like Scott Panchik and things like that have been to the games multiple times. Watching them throughout the years, they're some of the best in the sport of all time. How was it competing next to them, being a rookie, and just kind of soaking it all in?
Again, I try not to let the rookie thing. I think it's overstated in general. I don't think it's as big of a deal as some people say. I obviously those guys have earned the respect of the entire competition field through years of competing, and they're amazing athletes. So you have to give them respect on the competition floor because like they're phenomenal athletes. But I'm not scared to compete against them. You don't ever want to, as soon as you think someone's unbeatable, then they are.
Right.
So you don't really think about it that much. And once you're competing in an event, like sometimes you don't even notice them or you don't see them until crucial moments of an event, maybe like near the finish, you become a little bit more aware of that or whatever, but you can't be caught watching other people too much. And I found like the more the weekend went on, maybe in the beginning you were a bit more in awe of that stuff, but by day 3, end of day 3 and day 4, like I figured if I'm still in that heat, like I belong there. So, and you beat them in some events, they beat you in some events, like it always happens. So it was kind of validating and reassuring of like the work you've done in the year, and at a certain point you had to step back and say, okay, well, like these guys they're not better than me.
Right.
Like they're amazing athletes, but like apparently so am I at this point. So like, well, whatever, let's go for it. So you can't, sometimes you get a little bit concerned looking at it saying like, oh man, I feel like I should be attacking here a bit more, but like Ben Smith's struggling. So like, I feel like if I hit the gas, I'm probably going to blow up.
Right.
It might not be the case. Like you might just be a little bit better in a certain movement. You might have a little bit, every athlete's a little different. Right. So I think it became important to kind of do your own thing and try to drive your potential. And I'm an athlete that watches the field a fair amount, and I'm a competitive kind of person, so I get pulled by athletes pretty easily. So I generally tend to perform better in competition because I'll try to stay with people who are fast. And like at regionals, competing, already had that. I stood next to him almost all weekend, and like that's a hard guy to beat and a hard guy to follow. But I was used to that a little bit, so I think by coming to the games, it wasn't something super new to me. So I had a little bit of good experience with that, and like I say, I think it just by the end of the weekend, it became less and less important, and you just kind of realize that you belong there.
Now, CrossFit's been known for the unknown and unknowable this year. In the past years, Rogue has entered some sort of weird element. This year was the snail. You placed second in that event. You just said earlier that was one of the events that you loved because you are good with kind of weird looking stuff that you can move that not a lot of people have. How do you train for the unknown and unknowable, not knowing really what Dave Castro is going to throw at you year to year?
I mean, I don't think you do. Like, I don't think you train for those unknown elements. But the more you get out of the gym maybe and do other things, like, and I think a lot of the athletes who have success in those events are athletes with strong athletic backgrounds. If you played 3 different sports kind of at reasonably high level growing up, you understand so many different aspects of athletics and how different things move, like how your body reacts, and you just become a little bit more adaptable as an athlete, I think. So I think the value of a strong athletic background can't be understated. Like, I think that, yeah, like you have some people who just have nowadays who have been just doing CrossFit their whole lives. And I think those are going to be the guys who struggle more in those types of events because you can't train for them. I'm not going to just start going and like start building my own random weird things just in case maybe they build something that's also kind of like this.
Right.
You have to just do as many different things as you can. And I think that mostly the athletes who do well in those things are guys who played high level sports in a few different realms and just know their bodies well and know how to do different things well.
Right.
But I don't know. Like I said, you'll do a lot of whatever came up the year before or 2 years before. You watch things like the Invitational. Like this year, they had all the stones at the Invitational, so probably more people did stones than they have in previous years.
Right.
So you can anticipate things to a certain degree based on what's happened in other competitions of the year. But yeah, like I said, you can't just you drive yourself crazy trying to just prepare for everything. So
right. When did you kind of figure out that maybe CrossFit was for you? Was it this year? Was it, not for you? Obviously, you've been doing CrossFit for many years, but when did it click for you that, hey, this is something that I could actually become a full-time athlete in and devote a lot of my time to CrossFit?
Yeah, I started about 4 years ago, and I was a high-level gymnast for a long time. And when I retired, you go from training in gymnastics, you're training like 25 plus hours a week.
Right.
And it's a big chunk of your life that you're spending doing, like training yourself to do things. And I didn't, so I had a big void now, right? And I started just kind of training for whatever, like just working out in the gym and doing basic bodybuilding stuff while I was at school. And I ran into a couple friends there that were doing CrossFit, and they had rings out, I think, one day and were playing on them. So I went and played on the rings with them because I was good at that stuff. But started training with them, and it was like I didn't know anything about CrossFit at that time, but we all did the Open that year, and I got smashed in the Open. And then just like, wow, like I suck. Like I'm not that fit. So, I think if you're a competitor, CrossFit's just it was a good outlet for my competitive nature that I now didn't have anywhere to put that energy. So it's easy to, even if you're not competing in competitions, you can compete with yourself kind of every day. You compete with the people you're training with every day. And it was just an easy, fun, quantifiable sort of thing where you could measure your success and you could do whatever by your own terms. And so I enjoyed that a lot. And I think the next year I qualified for regionals and did well at regionals. And then I was kind of like, hey, yeah, like I think that was 2014, and I figured I could make something out of it. And I wasn't even training at a gym then. I was just sort of training at like a normal school gym, and
right.
Then I went in and started training with a coach, and we made some moves in the next year to try to get me to the games, which is the ultimate goal always. But yeah, I think probably in like 2014 when my second go at the Open, my redemption go at the Open, and then I made regionals, and that was when they took more people per region. But yeah, that would have been for sure when. And the more success you have, or even at a certain point, once you're in it, even if you have failures, it just pushes you more, right? So,
a couple more questions before we wrap things up. In terms of just like your recovery and what you eat on a daily basis, I know that's one of the biggest factors when people are talking about getting into CrossFit, or you have to eat paleo, you have to eat this, you have to eat that. What kind of diet plan do you go by, and how did that carry on over to the CrossFit Games?
This year, I started working with a nutritionist for the first time. I want to say after the Open, so leading up to regionals and to the games, and I think that made a big difference for me. I'm at school full time, so I tend to some days not eat a lot or well enough, and I'll go from being at school for 6 hours, then go straight to the gym and train for a few hours, and quickly realize you haven't eaten in 5 hours, right. And you're trying to train, and you're like, wow, like, so I think one thing that did for me, I didn't change what I was eating very much. I eat pretty well in general, like pretty clean, but it changed the timing and having a more regimented timing to eat and eating in blocks where like, okay, every 3 hours I'm going to be eating like roughly this amount of food, and it sort of keeps your energy levels high, and you never get catabolic, and you kind of. I found that made a really big difference for me, just energy wise, and those are things that are hard to even notice. But at the end of a week of maybe after you started doing it, you realize that like, oh, like you're not as wasted at the end of the week. You have a bit more energy. You're still hitting your like 99% of your lifts at like
Right.
whatever times of the day, and it's. I think that made a big difference. I don't think that it's as important to follow the paleo or anything like that. I think the key to having a successful diet and nutrition is sustainability. If you have a diet that's limiting you a ton and things that you want to eat or like to eat, then you won't stay with it. It takes all of your willpower all week to make it to that one cheat day. And like if you're training a lot, you need that willpower and that energy to do other things. Like if you're putting all of your energy into keeping yourself from eating a piece of chocolate or something, or like a piece of bread, like you're not going to last. You need to allow yourself a certain degree of freedom and build that in, or else, like I said, you might hang on for a month or two, but I just think long term it won't work.
Now, last question before we wrap things up. What was the coolest, if you had to pick one moment from your first CrossFit Games that will stand out, that will be with you for a while, whether it was something that someone said to you, an event, or something, just a moment? What was your favorite moment from this past year's CrossFit Games?
I mean, I'd love to say standing on the podium, but I don't think that's it even. I think it was on Saturday evening, that 100% event, that D-ball one. When we came into the tennis stadium on Saturday night, like it was packed. And that was the loudest I've ever heard a crowd. When we were on the line to start and the 10-second count hit,
right?
Like it just got so loud in that arena. And then you could hardly hear the standby call, and you could hardly hear the beep to go.
Right.
And that was like just standing on the line and watching everybody get on their feet as the count came down. It was insane. Like I've never felt that kind of energy in an arena before. So that for me was really cool. Like that was you felt like a pro athlete. Like that was a cool experience to have. And I mean, there's lots of stuff throughout the weekend, like that people say to you, or talking to some of the guys like Ben or Matt and throughout the weekend. But that's like a moment that gives you chills for sure. So I think that would probably be it for me.
Awesome. Well, Patrick, thanks so much for taking a little bit of time and chatting with us. Congratulations again on a podium finish in your first ever CrossFit Games. We will definitely catch you down the road, and good luck to you.
Thanks very much. Take care.